Alright, so the first question stated to us in the test that you guys wrote, it stated give the line number and the error exists and the replacement code that would fix the problem. Note there are major errors in logic, not to syntax or corrections like that, so it's major logical errors. So if we look at the first one, here's the first one that I've given you guys now. Now I'm going to go through this in quite extensive detail, and the fact that we've got this code. You see this little red dot on the right hand side. So if I go and I put I want to actually get a laser pointer here. If you look at this line here, it's that light at the back, you want to turn it off. If you look at this, where this line is here, this is the first line we're in. Int num1 comma total. Now what that does is it allocates a space in RAM to store num1 and to store total. Now remember, I've told you that they do not exist currently, they're just pointers. Do you guys get me? So that's what that line does, is it says create a memory reservation which can hold integers. It doesn't technically reserve it, but for now, just for the sake of looking at it, we've reserved a total area here where my dot is. Now what happens when we move to the next line? I want to see if this works. We move to the next line, Puya. Okay, so you'll see that now we're on the second line. So now we're in the second line, it says total is equal to 0. So what that does is that puts the value 0 inside the total variable. Do you guys get that? So 0 is put into there so we can actually refer to it. If I were to refer to it before 0 was put in there, what's going to happen? The computer's going to go, I have no idea what to do. You're talking weird stuff. It blows up. Do you guys get me? Now, on from there, we now go so far line 1 and line 2 is pretty simple, right? Yes? Yes. Okay, so now from there we're going to go down. Okay, this is going to take too long to do it this way. Yeah, we are going to go down to line 3. Now we are on line 3, input num1. That asks the user to input a value. Am I right? So in this example that I am going to go through, I am just going to say the user inputted the value 5. Are you guys happy with that? So the user inputted the value 5. So now if I go and the user inputs the value 5, it means that in that variable position, the number 5 is going to be held. Do you guys get me? Because that is what the user inputted. So now we go down to the next line of code. We go down to line 4. So far everything's correct, isn't it? It's doing like what we expect to do. This code for question 1.1 is expected to input numbers and add up numbers as they retrieve them. That's what the question said. It said it will add up numbers until the user enters 0. Now, this line here, if we look at the condition, num1 is equal to 0. Is that true or is that false? Num1 equals to 0. Is that true or false? False, because num1 does not equal to 0. So what happens? Does it enter that loop? No. So it goes straight to end while and it goes to the output. So I'll then say what will print out would be the sum of all the numbers inputted is 0. Is that correct? Did our program work correct? So where was the logical error? Okay, so we noticed it didn't enter the while loop here, so this was the error. And how would we fix that? Okay, we can say, I hear what you're saying. There was an option that was given here of greater than 0. My concern is, what if the number that was inputted was -5? We wouldn't want to exit if it was -5. The question stated it should only exit when the user enters 0. It will stop adding the numbers together. Do you get me? So it wouldn't be that we would leave it to equal to 0, but we would say not. Do you guys get me on this? So we're saying while num1 is not equal to 0. So if we change the condition to not equal to 0, are you guys following me? Then if we redo this, I'm going to delete all this. We're starting the program again. So all our variables are now cleared because we're rerunning the program, so they haven't been created. And we start this program again. We start at line 1. What's going to happen at line 1? Num1 comma total, so it declares the variables. Total is equal to 0. So total 0. Oops, sorry, I shouldn't have pressed enter. Then we go down to the next line, we input num1. Num1 is 5. We then enter here, while, now this statement, is this true or false now? True. So we enter the loop. Because it's true, the dot, the program will execute line 5. So total is equal to total plus num1. So what is 0 plus num1? 5. So now the number in total is 5. You guys get me? Then when you go to end while, it goes back up to the top to check the condition. So I'll go to end while. End while says, okay, go back to the top because it's a loop. And then it will check the condition again. Now what's happening here? Is num1 not equal to 0? So this becomes, what does this, so it's true, so it goes to the next line, so this becomes 10. End while, so what happens? It goes to the top. So what does this become? Goes into here, loops back up to the top. Is that true? Okay, so basically what we've noticed here, so if you check here, we've literally, it's true, it's still true, it's still true. So it's just going to increment forever and ever and ever. So there were actually 2 errors in this code. What should also be added? How would I fix this now? Sorry? I can hear you. You would input a, you're right, we would need to input, get the user to input num1 again. Because this program is going to loop until the user inputs 0. So we need to ask the user, while we're inside the loop, we need to ask the user for another input. Because we've got to change what our condition is. Our condition here is num1 is equal to 0, right? So inside the loop, we need to change num1. If num1 doesn't change, it's a never-ending loop. Do you guys get me? Okay. So literally, num1 equals to 0. We need to allow the user to input the number. So if the user doesn't allow to change the number, it can't press 0 to exit because it doesn't allow him to. So inside the loop, we need to re-ask the user to input num1. Do you guys follow? So now, if we redo this again, I'm going to go back to here. So we're going to clear our variables. So delete, oh hello, I don't want to delete the whole, I just want to delete the contents of it. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the top. Okay, so we go back to the top. Int num1 is equal to num1 in total, so we declare it. We go to the next line. 2. Total is equal to 0. Input num1. Num1, let's say you're going to enter in. Give me an input, any number? 7. Okay. So we now go while not num1 equals to 0 do. Is that true or false? True. Okay, so we go to the next line. Total is equal to total plus num1. What does total then become? Okay, so it becomes 7. Now it goes down to the next line. So now the next line asks the user, so this should be now. So now the next line asks the user to input a number. So user, give me a number. 6. Okay, so now 6 is inputted. So num1 becomes 6. We get to the end while will then pop us back up to the top of the loop. So literally when you get to an end while, it will just check the condition again, and only when that condition is false does it exit. So it's going to continue looping between these two things until this condition becomes false. When this condition becomes false, does it exit. So now this condition again, num1 equals to 0 not, is that true or false? True, so it is still true, so we enter into the loop. So total is equal to total plus num1, what's going to become? 13. So 13, then we go down to the next line, input me a number. 0. Okay, so now I got asked to input the number 0, so this is going to become 0. We get to the end while, it goes back up to the condition. Now, is this true or false? Okay, so num1 equals to 0 not, because num1 does equal to 0, so that's true. So not, it becomes false. Do you understand that? So false, so now because that's false, it then exits the loop, goes down to the next line. So now that we're on the next line, line number 8, it's now going to output the sum of all the numbers inputted is 13. Is that correct now? So there were two mistakes there. I would have given either one right. If you had have said to me, the first mistake that you could have indicated, you could have indicated to me, so the first mistake, so 1 is line 4, and you would have said there, the correction would be not num1 equals to 0. That was what we corrected there. Second mistake you could have indicated was between line 4 and 6 dash add input num1. Both of those answers would have got you full marks. The one mark was allocated for the line number, and the other mark was allocated for the how to fix it. Do you guys understand me? Okay, I'm just going to check something here. Just give me 2 seconds. It's not fun. Alt 252. Okay, so there's one mark there. Yeah, it doesn't help. Okay, so there's one mark allocated there. I'm just going to copy and paste these ticks. The other mark's allocated there. Or, so let me just say, put there or you could have done one mark allocated here, or one mark allocated here. Do you guys get me? So when you guys mark your tests, this is how you would allocate the marks. Do you guys get that? Okay. Now, we go on to the next question. The next question, sorry, it's taking a while to go across. Okay. The next question, it said here, it's going to count even numbers. The question said, I've created code to count even numbers. You need to determine where the errors were. There were 2 errors here. It asked for 2 errors. You needed to determine where the 2 errors were to make this code work. So we take a look. Line 1, int I and max, that creates me this here. It creates me I, a space in RAM reserved, and max, a space in RAM reserved, called I and max. Do you guys follow me? Okay. So now we're happy that line has been executed, correct? So we move our brains down to the second line, or the processor, the computer would move down to the second line. And now we're on I equals to 1. So I gets the value 1. So the variable I gets assigned the value 1 into that space of memory. So far we're good. Now we go to here, the program output max, but max doesn't exist. So what happens is literally, boom, the computer blows up. How was the animation, right? Okay. But literally, the computer cannot proceed. Max doesn't exist, but you've now asked it to output max, but it doesn't actually exist. So it's kind of like, I can't compute this. It doesn't exist. It wouldn't proceed further. It would just literally exit. Red error, cannot proceed. Sorry for you, I have no idea what to do. Do you guys get me? Your program bombs out. Because I'm outputting something that doesn't exist. So what should of this be? Okay, so this should have read, I want the user to input max. So this should say input max. So that is the first error. So I'm going to list in my answers. I'm going to create a little answer thing here quickly. Well, it's a bit further up than I thought. We are going to put in our answers. So the one error was line 3 dash input max would be the correct answer. Okay, so now we've already executed line 1 and line 2, so I'm not going to redo line 1 and 2. I don't think I need to, do I? Okay, so we're running the program again. Line 1 and line 2 has been executed. We're now on line 3. We're now asking the user to input max. So give me a number between 10 and 20. 15. Okay, so I've got there 15 has been inputted. So now we're inputting 15, so we go down to the next number. So now there's a condition. While I is less than or equal to max, 1 is less than or equal to 15, so therefore it is true. So we enter that loop, we go to here, output I. So I is going to be added to the output, so I is 1, so 1 is going to be outputted. Is that fine? Do you guys get that? Now I'm going to go down to the next line. I is equal to I plus 2. So what does I become? 3. So I is equal to whatever's in I plus 2, so it becomes 3. So it then goes down to the end while. What does end while do? So it goes to end while. End while goes back up to the condition and checks if that's true. Is that true? Is I less than or equal to max? So 3 is less than or equal to max, so it's still true, so it remains true, and output I. So we then we add to output 3. So far you're getting it. Okay? Now we go down to line 6. Line 6 says I is equal to I plus 2, so what does I become? 5. We go to our end while. Our end while does what? Takes it back to the top of the while. Is 5 less than or equal to max? True. Guys, I want you to respond to me. I want you to show me that you're paying attention. True. So output I. So what are we going to add to output? 5. Because I is now 5. So we go down to I is equal to I plus 2. So what does I become? 7. Oops, sorry. So 7. So now I go down. Already, I'm not going to go all the way to the end here, but already what mistake have I found? Okay, so I've found out that I'm counting up in odd numbers. So in other words, I shouldn't start I at 1, my starting position. I got told 0, but remember, then it would print out 0, and we had that discussion whether 0 was a even number or not. Is 0? Is 0 an even number? Okay, so then I would start I at 0. So that would be my second error. My second error was, so here there would be a mark for line 3, there's a mark for line max, and then my second error is line 2, and that word should be I is equal to 0. I would have also given the mark if we said I is equal to 2. I would give a mark for either of those. Do you guys get me? So now that would be where the other mark was for. So now if I do this again, I'm going to go through this a bit quicker, and I'm going to choose a smaller number. Is it okay if I choose 11? Okay. So now I is equal to 0. We go and we input a max, so our max will be equal to 11. We go while that is true. We output I. Oh, hello, don't change the size of the circle. So output I, it outputs 0. I then becomes I plus 2. So sorry, I was 0. It's now going to be I was 0, so now it will become 2. So, oops, damn it, don't delete the whole thing. This is slightly tricky. This is not the best app for this. I becomes 2. And then, when you move down, by the way, I would like, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, I would like comments for better visual presentations, one where I can put animation and live record lines, stuff like this. So if you guys have any suggestions of better applications, free applications, I am Microsoft licensed, so I'm trying to do, I'm using PowerPoint here, but if you have better, I don't care about the subscribing part of it. Yes, click and subscribe, but more just suggestions of better apps. Okay, now anyway, now moving on from that, no, that does not get you a pass of IT if you subscribe. Anyway, now what you do from there is 2 less than or equal to max. True. So why no?
Wait, did you say
Is 2 I less than or equal to max? Okay, so that's true. So output I. So we now output 2. We then go I is equal to I plus 2. So I becomes 4. We then go to end while. After it goes to end while, it'll loop back to the top. It checks the condition is 4 less than or equal to 11. True. So it outputs what's in there, which is 4. It then goes I is equal to I plus 2. So it then becomes 6. We then end while. It goes back up to the top. Is 6 less than or equal to 11? True. So it goes into it. It writes there 6. It then goes I is equal to I plus 2. So it becomes 8. Sorry, 8. Then it goes down to the end while, it'll loop up to the back. Is it true? Is 8 less than or equal to 11? True. Output I, so we output 8. Then I becomes I plus 2, so I becomes, oh, hello, I keep doing that. I becomes 10. We then we loop down to end while, it goes back to the top. Is 10 less than or equal to 11? True. Output I, so I put 10. And then I is equal to I plus 2, so I becomes 12. We then go end while, it will go back up to the top. Well, it'll come back up to the top. Let me make my circle a bit smaller again. It became a bit long. So it goes back up to the while. That becomes false. It exits the loop. Have I successfully got my program to print out even numbers? Up until max. So whatever max is, it will input. So my program is now correct by fixing lines 3 and lines 2. Do you guys get me? So I followed the code. Now I went through it quite slowly because I wanted to show you each line by line how it works. Is this helping?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, question 2 asked you to draw a trace table for the following code and give the final output. So I gave you code. So here is, yes.
So I was just wondering, if you put I as 2, would you then put while I is less than or equal to max minus 2?
If you put I as 2, no, because then every single time it will go negative. So if you were doing that, sorry, we were on this question here, sorry. If you were doing that, okay, so were you saying if I put I is equal to what here?
If I was equal to 2,
Yes.
and then in your while loop it was I is less than or equal to max minus 2.
No, because the verbally, the way the question was worded, it said loop until max. So even if you started at -2, max would be over. It's difficult because you also have to keep track of the fact that if it's an odd number, you don't want to make sure, like if for example it was 11, if you did this slightly differently, you might have coded it so it would have printed out 12, even though the max was 11. So you do have to think about it, but you would have to show me your complete code, but you would have to take into account. But I don't think it would be max minus 2 because you're starting at a different spot. Does that kind of make sense? But I'd have to look at the code specifically for that. Alright, guys, we're moving on to now the question 2. Question 2 states, draw a trace table for the following code and give the final output. So 2.1, draw a trace table. 2.2, there is some talking that is going on now. Remember what I said, you pay attention during this lesson, or why are you in this class? No, you saw who I was looking at. He's focusing on his phone, not on the lesson. Now, on from there, you'll notice that we go here, we have a Boolean alternate as our first statement. So that creates me a variable space of alternate. Do you guys get that? Yes? It's declaring a Boolean area of alternate. So it then goes down, we execute to the next line. The next line states alternate equal to true. So alternate becomes true. Do you guys get this? Yes.
So would Boolean mean that alternate could only be 1 or 0?
Yes, in Pseudo we call it true or false, but yes, numerically in RAM it would be a 1 or a 0.
Okay.
So yes, only 2 options, but in Pseudo we refer to it as a true if it's a 1 or a false if it's a 0.
Okay.
But remember that it technically even reserves a bit of padding around it, so it's actually more than just 1 bit often anyway, but blah blah blah, that's university stuff if you want to worry about those kind of things. Alright, now if you move down and we scroll down, we go to string display. So that creates me a variable called display. Do I have that here? No, I don't. So I haven't created a variable called display. So I'm going to quickly add myself a variable called display. Sorry for not doing this beforehand. So I'm going to create myself a variable called display. Here, display. What color should I make it?
Orange.
Okay.
Teal.
So we're going to have a variable called display, and the majority it sounded like it was orange, so I'm going to make it a very bright orange.
Teal.
But it kind of looks very similar to the other ones. I think I want a more different color. Okay, now, so I don't even know what teal is, so.
That color at the bottom.
Oh yeah. Okay, so I was already had a teal. Alright, anyway, so display has been created. Next line it says display is equal to nothing. Now, technically, that just literally creates a space here that can be referred to. So even though it's nothing, it actually does create it. So before we entered that line, when we were on this line, technically what happened in the computer was this. There was something called display. So when we declare string display, right, there is technically a pointer called display, but there is no space in RAM called display. Do you guys get me on that? When I move down, down to this line here, that's when it physically creates the space in RAM. Only when you initialize does it actually physically create the space in RAM, and it says nothing. Do you guys get me on that? It's important to understand that step, because like when we try to output max before we've initialized it, the computer will freeze because it has no idea what's going on. Do you understand me? Yes?
Yes, sir.
No? You can say no as well.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I'm going to move down. So display is blank. I'm going to move down. This is a for loop. I know I wrote here, when the syntax I gave you, I just said loop. But it was because there's different conventions for it. Some people say for, some people say loop. Okay, so for and loop means the same thing. So it's looping I 1 to max. Now, it does the exact same thing as that while loop where it'll increment. So it'll start at 1, and then every single time it goes back to this line, it will increment it by 1. Do you guys get me? That's what it'll do. So it'll go start at 1 and end at max. We have a start position and we have an end position. Do you guys follow me? Cool. So we start at 1. Now it then says, if alternate then. If alternate. Is alternate true? I actually realized this is not the final one I gave you guys. I copied from an old copy. No, don't worry, it's just because there was one line missing on this. I did have the... Oh no, here it is. Sorry, ignore me. Sorry, ignore me. This is good. Okay, so I'm on if alternate then. Right, so I'm there. So it is true. Because it's true, it means it enters it, isn't it? Does that make sense? So now it says j is 1 to I, so j is going to become 1. You guys get it?
What is 1 to I?
Yeah, j is 1 to I. So it's basically j is 1 to, what's an I? 1. Now, here,
Oh, it's like a ratio.
yeah. Now, I apologize for picking this up now. What mistake did I make here? What is max? Do you guys all see what mistake I made?
Yes.
I did not get the user to input max, or did I declare max? So that was my fault. Luckily this is a practice test. But my bad on that. Guys, you will notice even mistakes do happen, and you would have been given full marks if you had have said there was no max, so therefore it wouldn't output once. If you guys said that in your exam, guess how many marks you got? All of them. If there was for real a mistake in the code, which in this case there was. So now we have an extra variable here. So for now I'm just fixing it on the fly. We have an extra variable called max, and we are now going to create that extra variable called max. What are we going to input it in this case? Okay. So now number. So now let's say we're going to input. I wanted a higher number than 3. 9. Okay, I like 9. 9's a good number. So 9 is max. So now when I get to this line of code, sorry, I've skipped back. We went back to the up here. We inputted max of a value 9. We now are here. So we're looping I 1 to max. So this is going to loop from 1 to what value? 9. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Do you guys get this? As a standalone loop, this will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I am then going to go to the next line. What happens on the next line? So if true, then, so if alternate, which is true, then, so it's going to enter it. So we loop j 1 to I. So this is going to loop 1 to 1. So how many times is this going to loop? Once. How many times is the outside loop going to loop? 9 times. So you guys get this. So this one's only going to loop once. So display is equal to display plus j. So my output is going to be, what is my output going to be? 1. 100. It's going to be 1. You guys good? Now, I am then going to end this loop. Do you guys get me that it's going to end this loop?
So is your output or your display going to be 1?
Oh, sorry, you're right. Thank you. Thank you. Well spotted there, Alistair. So basically, the display is then going to be 1. Now, just a note here. You got asked to do a flowchart. So right now, my is true, I is 1, and j is 1. That's the level we've done so far. Do you guys get me? Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're now going to go to end loop 1 to 1. So it goes back here. Now j would become 2. Is 2 equal to it won't go to 2, will it? Do you guys get me? A for loop will not go to 2 because it's 1 to 1. So I'll literally just exit this loop. It will go display is equal to display plus backslash n. So my display is going to be added on the end backslash n. You guys get me? End if alternate. Now we're on the alternate line. Alternate is equal to not alternate. What would alternate become? So this would become false. End loop. So when we get to an end loop, what happens? I go back. So now I will become 2. So I has become 2. We enter our loop. If alternate. False. So do we enter that if statement? So we go all the way down to the next line after the end if. So we go to the end if, and we skip everything in there. So alternate is equal to not alternate. So what's it going to do? It's going to make alternate true. So now I'm actually going to indicate here in my pseudocode, alternate was false. As you can see, I can't spell true. True. Okay. So when I is 2, j doesn't even start, does it? Because we skipped it completely. But now alternate has become true, and now we go back to end loop. We go up to the top, so I becomes 3. We go down to the next line. If alternate, so that's true. So we go down to the next line. Now we're looping 1 to 3. So how many times is it going to loop? So it's going to go 1, 2, 3. So it's literally going to go from 1 to I. So from 1 to I goes 1, 2, 3. So j becomes 1. We go down to display is equal to display plus j. So display is equal to display plus j. What is j currently? So it becomes 1. We end loop. We go back to the top of that inner loop. So we go back up to here. So now we loop j is equal to 1 to I. So j becomes now 2. We enter into here. Display is equal to display plus j. So we'll add on to there 2. It goes to end loop, which means it'll go back to the top. So j becomes what? 3. Display is equal to display plus j. So it becomes, we add 3 to the end of that. Then we end loop. Now j is now at I. So do I loop again?
No.
I exit that loop. So I go to the next line, which is a backslash n. Do you guys get me? Now I go down to alternate. Alternate not equal to alternate. So alternate becomes false. Okay, so on this case, let's fill this in. So I is equal to 3, and j is equal to 1, then j is equal to 2, and then j becomes 3. I saw some of you guys answer that with commas in between. I'm okay with that. But technically, when I is 3, j goes 1, 2, 3. Now, an important part here, that I'm going to mention. I haven't been coding it like this because of ease of, but when I end this loop, J gets deleted. Technically, I'm not going to do it now. Technically, J could be completely removed. So in other words, if I were to do this properly, it would basically be like, this would be deleted. Okay, I can't draw in there. But this whole thing would be deleted. It's gone. Do you hear me? Like once, and then I'll have to redeclare it, recreate it the next time it loops. So when it finishes, when you end that loop, that variable, because it was only declared on this layer, because it was only declared there, it only exists there. When that finishes, it no longer exists. I am not deleting it because it's going to take me a while then to re-add it onto the screen. But literally, it deletes that whole thing that's there. I wonder if I can now erase this weird squiggly line that I did on the board now. Go away. Hey, look at that. One click. Okay, do you guys get me with J? Do I need to do the rest of this? Who here wants me to continue? Hands up. Okay, a couple. I'm going to do it because we need to get this. Alright, so if alternate, not alternate, end loop, we go back to the top, so it goes to end loop, it goes back to the top, so now I becomes, so J is false now, I becomes 4. I'm going to go through it a bit quicker though. If alternate is false, so it doesn't do it, it skips down to the bottom, so it says alternate is equal to not alternate. So then this will become true. It would then go to the end loop, it then goes back up to the top, so I will become 5. 5 would then be, if alternate is true, so it enters into the loop J is equal to 1, 2, 5, so J would become the value 1, and we'll loop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Display will equal to everything in there, so as it loops around, it'll make first loop. So first loop, it would equal to 1, second loop, it will equal to 2, third loop will equal to 3, 4, and then 5. Do you guys get me? And then backslash n because it would have ended the loop. Now I am not going to do the rest because I'm running out of screen space, but I as I say, this will be on YouTube. You guys can watch it if you need to. But in this case, whenever this would then become false, so this is alternating, and I think my question stated it would be up to the trace up table up to what value did I tell you guys? I think I told you guys to please do it up to 7. So you'll see here that it said there up to value 7 that you'll be doing this trace table to. So it will become false, I will be 4, J doesn't do anything. It will then become true, I will become 5, it will then go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then J will become false, while it is 6, it will then go, it won't go at all. It will then become true, it will then become 7, this will go 1, J will go 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm running out of the bottom of the screen. Oh, you guys aren't seeing what I'm doing, are you?
That's fine.
Strange enough, I have been doing this. I have been doing this while verbally talking to you, but it turns out I wasn't on the slide that I was actually busy typing on. But the idea was is when I becomes 5, J will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When it's 6, this boolean is false, so it will not do anything. And then, as I say, I'll go off the screen, but I will go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So some of you represented it rather by going like this. Are you guys seeing it this time? Some of you guys represented it like this. I'm completely happy for you to have done that, because as you can see, it did actually cause me hassle. It did actually cause me hassle trying to do it in more than that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm very happy to have done it this way. It would then have saved you the problem of going off the screen like I do, or your page. Okay. Okay, now, guys, I warned you about today. Today, so many of you have been complaining about not understanding. Today, I'm going back from the beginning. You better be paying attention. Do you hear me? Now, the next question, I'm going to move on to it now. The next question states that draw pseudocode that now it's a different story. now we actually have to come from the other side of the coin. We're not getting given code and analyzing the code. We have to solve the code. So we are going to be first, we got given this pattern. 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 12. Sorry, 1, 3, 4. Now, if we look at it, how the steps work, so I'm analyzing, first I've got to solve the problem in my head. So if I look at the steps, the first step that we're looking at, how much does 1 change to become, so if I even think of it, if I think of this as the variable I, if you will, this goes up by 1. You're not seeing anything, are you? Okay. Okay, there's a pretty thing, there's a pretty thing. So that was what you should be seeing. I was seeing it on this side, not on that side. I'm working with 3 screens here, I apologize. Okay. So if I'm talking and you're not making sense, please do tell me, otherwise I am literally looking at the wrong screen. So right now, the first jump here goes up in 1. Sorry, goes up in how many? How many does it increment by? 2, sorry, my bad. So it gets incremented by 2, it then gets incremented by 1, then 2, then 1, then 2, then 1, then 2.
One more.
Did it like just disappear, or how did it work? Did it go backwards? I don't know how that worked. Okay, sorry guys, I think it was because I pressed an arrow or something. Now, you'll see there that it goes, so it goes 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Do you guys, so basically it's alternating between incrementing the value by 2 and then by 1. You guys get this? So now, first of all, where am I going to start at?
1.
So I'm starting at the value 1. That's annoying. Okay, so it's not that funny, but it is funny. It's just like decides to throw everything away every single time I click off. Okay, yeah. So it starts on the value. So hence, give me better apps below. Yeah. Paint. Yeah, that's gonna take me a while. Yeah. So on this case, so it's gonna start at 1, and then in the loop, what are we gonna be doing? Okay, let's just work out the end. Where do we finish?
12.
We finish at the user inputted number of times. We loop until the user inputted number of times. So we must loop a x number of times. I see. I know. I'm going to have to redo this every time. It's a glitch. I added animations. In future, I'm not going to add animations because I can't add anything because it deletes all the animations that were happening previously. So future from now, if I am going to use this, I won't add animations. Now, so it's going to loop a x number of times. So the question stated it wants to loop a user inputted number of times. So it's not up to a maximum value, it is a certain number of times. So we've determined a loop. I'm looping from 1 to a user inputted times. Do you guys get that? And then we're going to have to work out here. So if I now go, so in here, we would want to alternate between, I'm just literally going to write the text, and I know it's going to disappear, but I'll redo it. Alternate plus 1 and then plus 2. So in our actual code inside our loop, we need to alternate between plussing 1 and plussing 2. And you guys might have noticed that previously in this pseudocode that I gave you, I even showed you, I gave you a question where I showed you how to alternate. Didn't I? Using a boolean. There are other ways, but this is one way of alternating. So to alternate between things is using boolean. So we could have done that. Now we're going to actually have to look at actually coding it. So now this is going to be fun. So now that we're physically coding it, the first thing that I know we're going to need to do is we're going to need an int number of iterations, because the user is going to input the number of times that it should be iterated, right? So input for the sake of me not taking up a lot of space in my RAM section here, can I make this in num_i? And you guys will understand that it's number of iterations? Sorry? Yeah, I can make it i. I can't really make it an I because it's a stopper, it's not a counter. I is convention for a counter, not a convention for a stopping position. So if you want, it might maybe better to call it stop, and that's then shorter and it makes sense in what it's doing. So I've got a variable and it's going to be called stop. So over here I've created a variable and I'm going to call it stop. Are you guys happy with that? And the user is going to input that. So for let's say for our arguments of testing it right now, let's just say the user is going to input. Sorry, I don't know why I've got that here. Let's say here the user is going to input 7. Is that okay? Just for our example. Now, what I want to happen now is I know if I go back to my statement here. So if I go back to what here, I want to loop from 1 until that number, don't I? So how would I create that loop? I would go and I would say in my code, I would say for or loop I is equal to 1 to stop. Do. I would then press enter. I know you guys can't do this on you can't do it on paper, yes. You can't insert stuff between it, but logically you would input you would end your loop as well. So just make sure you don't forget to end your loop. You guys follow me? Do you guys get that this will loop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? So now I have a variable called I, which is going to start at the value 1. So I've got a variable here called I. So far, are we good? Yes, no? Maybe. Okay, so far in my problem that I have here, all I've done so far, I've created a start, I've created an end. Yes? That's all I've done. So now my next problem that I need to do is I need to create something to be able to alternate inside. So what do we do to alternate between plus 1 and plus 2? We create a sorry, I'm not on the slide. We create a Boolean variable called alternate. So now I've created another variable called alternate. So I'm going to I've created and ran a variable called alternate. So what I'm trying to get at here, I'm not solving everything at once. I am solving a problem. People at the back there? Eyes. Now, and I know you're struggling with this, so it's extra important you pay attention, alright? You need to give us a full shot of your go if you don't want you to give up before giving it your full go. Alright, a Boolean, I'm stating the first problem I went to solve. I solved the idea of a start and an end. I solved that, right? That was done. I know how to do that. The second part of the problem is I need to alternate. So I'm going to the second part of my problem. I am now looking at alternating. So to alternate, I know I would need to start at any value. So I'm going to start at true. You could start at false as well. But in this case, I'm going to start at true. So it would be like giving my value here now the value true. You guys happy with this so far? I'm actually going to make this condition kind of go away because I don't even know if I need a condition. I want to make my RAM a bit bigger. And now, so if for this condition to work, I would need to say if alternate, then end if. Sorry, my syntax is wrong. And then I would need to make alternate is equal to not alternate. And you guys understand that that code there, this will run the first time it loops, second time it loops it won't run, third time it loops it will run. You guys get me? It will loop every second time. It'll execute this code every second time. Do you guys follow me on this? And please don't log on. Okay. Are you following me? So now if alternate, what's going to happen? We now either need to add 1 or we need to add 2. So technically I need 2 statements. If I'm either adding 1 or I'm adding 2. So I'm going to have a else here. So I'm either going to be adding 1. I'm just going to make this a comment. I'm either going to add 1 or I'm going to add so I'm going to add 2 or I'm going to add 1. Do you guys understand that? Alternating between adding 2, adding 1. Alternate inside there. So now, our next problem is we actually need a actual value that we're going to be adding or changing. So I need another variable, and this variable I'm going to call, I am going to call this val, as in short for value. The actual current value I'm going to print. You can call it whatever you want. You guys can do shorthand like this to save yourself space. You can literally just go, there's two integers, there's a stop, and there's a val. And val, I know I'm going to want to equal to, what value do we start on? 1. So now, I'm going to decrease the size of my text a little bit because I'm running out of space here. So excuse me for that. But I'm going to decrease the size of it a bit. Now, on from there, now I is equal to 1, I would need to first output my I, wouldn't I? You guys get that statement? Here I need to increment it by 2. So val is equal to val plus 2. Here I need to increment it by 1. Val is equal to val plus 1. So it's alternating between the two of those and it's printing it out. Do you guys get this?
But then we just use I.
No, because I is looping. You got asked that you need to, if the user enters 10, you should display 10 numbers of the sequence, not up to the value 10.
Oh.
So I can't increment I because I is my counter to count the number of times I'm looping. Does this make sense? So, but val is my value that I start at 1 and then I'll increment it by 2. Do you guys, can I move on to the next problem solving, or do you want me to go through this line by line to show you how this one works that I've done?
There's only 1 minute left.
Okay, so I'm going to leave the next question. Please stay seated. You guys work until the end, not because there's 1 minute left you can stand. Sit down. Okay. So now, I'm going to finish this, and then the next question with regards to the other patterns and the structures that are going on after that. So you'll see that I've set up for the other patterns as well, what the problem is going to be and how to solve it. But and we would code those. I'm going to do that in the next lesson. However, I'm going to also give you the mark sheet because probably okay. Anyway, I'm going to finish the video now. This statement is complete with regards to the solution for this. Obviously, val I have not gone and put there. Wait, please. Val I haven't put the value in here. But do you understand that would create the area in RAM and whatnot? Okay, goodbye guys. Enjoy your day.